All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here. I've got Tim Krepp, guide extraordinaire and our expert on Washington, D.C. How's it going, Tim?
Very good. Thanks, Naomi.
Good. So basically, we're just trying to get a little idea of what the DC trip is like. You know it better than anyone, so that's why I wanted to just kind of ask you if you give people a rundown of what the synopsis of the trip is, what they could expect to experience.
Sure. Of course, the biggest limiting factor, of course, is time, whether you do a quick overnight trip to DC or you're here for 3, 4, 5 days to really kind of delve into it. But I'd say pretty much all DC trips are going to see a little bit of your capital, the nation's capital, centering on some of our memorials. Remember great presidents, great leaders, some significant events in American history, like the Vietnam, Korean War II. You're going to at least see the Capitol. You can't miss it. Most trips will have some sort of visit to the Capitol, either take the regular tour, perhaps see the congressman, see the House galleries. There's a whole bunch of different things you can do there that your account manager can talk to you about. One of the highlights is Arlington Cemetery. It's one of my personal favorite things to visit. That's slowly reopening after COVID, so we're still a little flux there, but I personally find that my favorite part of the tour. It's a chance to get outside for 2-3 hours to walk around and just explore a lot of our nation's history in a more tactile format, a little less just sit on the bus, listen to a guy on the microphone and walk around. And I find that's where the kids get the most questions. They have the most bonding, a little more chatting. There's almost a magic power to actually walking and talking as opposed to just staying up in front of a group. So that's the thing. We love to give kids some free time to go explore the museums on their own. They of course see the content there, but they also have a chance to kind of grow a little bit as a group of course, in a safe manner to decide what they want to see, how they want to see it, what interests them, and I find that a fun thing. And you'll probably, of course, you'll see the White House, you'll see the Washington Monument, see some of the other things along that tour.
Well, very cool. Awesome. And what would you say from both the student's perspective and the teacher's perspective are their main highlights, maybe some stories you've had from the years?
Sure. A lot depends on what they bring to the experience, what level of familiarity they have with these things. And that can range the gamut. There are some folks that are, like me, young little history nerds that were growing up studying this, reading these things when they were 7 years old, and they get here. It's the first thing they saw, and that's a really big fun thing. But I find quite enjoyable are those kids that aren't necessarily turned on by history the way I was, or aren't really familiar with that, and perhaps thought that history class was that boring stuff that they didn't really pay attention to, and they come here and they see these things and they see that it fits in a way that they didn't get in the classroom, and they get excited by it and find themselves. And I mean, of course, most of our clients are middle schoolers. I have my own middle schoolers upstairs right now doing their remote learning. I love middle schoolers because they have kind of a veneer of worldly experience, but they're still kids and they still kind of get into it when you let them. So I really enjoy that part of it, and seeing that. And sometimes the parents too. A lot of history teachers have been studying this for years and years, and they may never have seen this before. So that's a lot of fun. And of course, many have been on this trip so many times they can do the tour just as well as I can too.
Right. Well, that's my experience too. When I traveled when I was younger, it's one thing to read about the Colosseum. It's a whole other thing to see it and understand the context of it, feel it, and everything.
It totally is. And for a year, we've all been doing all these virtual things. I personally cannot wait to go and see things firsthand and experience things firsthand. It's a very real and different experience.
Totally. And that actually, I was wondering, and you might, I imagine, know more, how might the DC trip differ now in a post-COVID society?
Let me start off with saying, I don't know. No one knows. Anyone promising knowledge is certainty. I think some of the same principles we applied beforehand are going to be even more important now, like flexibility. Being flexible with the itinerary, and as you know as well as I do, the itinerary is the backbone of each tour, the thing that you build on the tour. But there's always been disruptions. There's always been, a storm came up so we can't go to the cemetery, or presidential motorcade's going through so we got delayed here, and it's not a promise, it's a plan. So that's going to be on steroids this go around. So we're gonna have to work with that. I like that as a guide. I always enjoyed that challenge of like, oh, how can I make this experience valuable to those kids? And they may not have seen the thing they thought they were going to see, but there won't be dead time. There won't be any time where you just sit on the bus wondering what's going on. There's going to be something to see. It's a big city. There's 700,000 of us that live here, and we're always doing something interesting. And I find sometimes those experiences can be a little bit rewarding, because you're prepared for the Capitol, or you're prepared for the Lincoln Memorial. But if you get to go to, say, DuPont Circle or Eastern Market or Georgetown, the neighborhood, and have lunch and maybe explore one of our neighborhoods a little bit, or play kickball on the mall and, play frisbees on the mall, sometimes like that can be more real and more accessible to a kid than the more traditional format.
Oh yeah, and I think that those little one-offs are really the things that they remember for their whole life. The museums are great and important, but it's the experience.
I mean, I take great pride in my knowledge and what I've accumulated over the years and all these books I've read and all that crap and everything. But really, everything I'm saying can be found on Wikipedia. The experience is what makes it different from what they're learning in class, things like that, and that tactile, that in person, that breathing the fresh air and seeing that at the same time brings it home to them.
Totally. Let's see. My next question. You kind of just answered, what is the best part of bringing students on these trips? I believe
Sure.
covered.
Well, I mean, I'd love to expand on that a little bit. Of one of my favorite things is a lot of kids are coming to Washington D.C. the same way I might go to Disney World or something like that, where it's this kind of controlled environment thing. Like, no, it's a living, functioning, breathing city. I live here. My middle school and high school kids get on the D6 bus and, well, did, and will soon again, ride the city bus to school. And I always find that fun when I drive by their school and I point it out to the kids. That's where my kids go to school. Or they see, my neighbors walking by the street. Like, how do you know these people? Like, well, this is my hometown, to share that experience with them. So I really enjoy that part, and looking forward to that part for both us DC residents experiencing our own hometown again, and then getting to share that with visitors. That really is a fun part of it that makes each trip unique, each experience unique, and get these kids, get those visitors from elsewhere to see how different Americans live. Like I mentioned, I grew up in the suburbs, and I took the school bus till my parents drove me to school. So eventually I drove myself to school. My kids walk or bike or take the city bus to school. It's a very different experience for them, and to see what might be a very different experience for a lot of these kids and how other parts of America live and function. I think that's quite rewarding.
Okay, 100%. That is a wonderful answer. So what are you looking most forward to in getting groups back out? I mean, it's kind of a lot there, but
it's yeah. I look forward to not having to worry about everything all the time. A lot of that stuff, but specifically with groups, and not being completely obsessed about all the details of doing that, and to get back to that level of normality, I think will be really exciting for me. I think hopefully it's exciting for my guests to get to a point where we're not worried about masks and COVID and all that stuff, and just worrying about getting to dinner on time and things like that. We'll have a standard level of anxiety and not the hyped up one. And I think I hope we can offer that experience to our guests very soon, that they can experience that with us, and to see that travel and to experience that stuff, because we've all been living this quasi surreal life of Zoom chats and meetings and stuff like that, and to get back to doing things for real is going to be a lot of fun for me.
I like the idea of having the old standard of anxiety be the new goal.
yeah, like just get the regular. Yeah.
It explains it all.
Yeah, let's not overpromise it. We're not going to get down to nothing, but to get to where
be as stressed as we were before.
Yeah, normal accomplishable tasks. I want the thing to wake up at 2 a.m. that I could get done the next day. Not
that might have changed.
I can't come up with a vaccine. I can't do that. Sorry.
I know you would if you could.
I would.
And And my last question was just describe your personal favorite part of the trip, which you did touch on with Arlington and showing kids your town.
Arlington, I love, and even a little more broadly, my personal favorite is seeing my guest reactions, because I have seen the Lincoln Memorial 478 times. It itself is not new to me, but telling what maybe the similar story that I told last week, but seeing how that kid or that teacher or that parent reacts to it, it makes it new to me every time. So that part I'm also looking forward to again, to making all this new for me. So I'm patiently waiting for that and looking forward to it very much. So.
Well, good. Yeah, I have the same thing when I guide in San Francisco. I've seen the Golden Gate Bridge a million times, but when you see it through the eyes of the guest, you're like, oh right, this is amazing. This is amazing.
It's funny, like things like the Vietnam Memorial. We go to the memorial, and I do my little spiel. I talk about it, and sometimes the teacher comes like, "Don't we need to tell the kids to behave?" And like, watch this, and like just the experience of walking down to the memorial kind of centers them a little bit. The architecture is so profound that I don't have to say anything, and just seeing that reaction, almost like clockwork, of how that interacts between the physical space and those kids. It's almost like alchemy or magic or something like that. So I really enjoy that.
Oh, well, that's lovely. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time today.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. Of course. Thanks for having me, and look forward to seeing everyone in person.
Yeah, totally. It's always a pleasure. And say hi to your family for me, please.
We'll do, and you too as well.
All right. Bye, Tim.